So Elphaba's alive, Glinda's in charge, and that final shot really recreates that Broadway poster in a way that will make you sob. But here's what no one is talking about. The movie changes the ending in ways that completely flip what you think you know from the musical. And I'm not just talking about the new songs or the extended scenes, I'm talking about the emotional beats, the character motivations, and the Easter eggs that rewrite how we understand this entire story. Now, I've read Gregory Maguire's original Wicked novel 3 times, and I've watched the 1939 Wizard of Oz more times than I can count. I watched Wicked last year in cinemas and again on Peacock, and I just got out of Wicked for good. So let's break down exactly how this ending works, what changes, and whether we're getting a Wicked 3. Now let's start with what everyone wants to know first, and that's the ending. And there are 7 things you need to know about what happens and what it all means. Number 1 is the setup before Dorothy even arrives. Elphaba fills a bucket of water and positions it where Dorothy will find it, because she's already planning her exit strategy. Number 2 is the fake melting. When Dorothy throws the water, Elphaba pretends to melt and slips through a secret passageway in the floor. That's the same passages Fiyero told her about earlier. Now, in the 1939 Wizard of Oz, Margaret Hamilton's Wicked Witch actually melted using this exact trapped door technique, so you kind of see the movie honoring that. Number 3 is Fiyero's role in all of this, because he is now the Scarecrow, and he helped set this plan in motion. He sent Chistery, the flying monkey, to Elphaba with a message about his transformation, the approaching mob, and the suggestion to hide until he arrives. Number 4 is why does she do it? Why does she fake her death? The thing is, Elphaba realizes Oz will never accept her. Despite her power, she's been made into a villain, and the animals, including her nanny, Dulcibert, who returns in a brief but emotional cameo, tells her the land will never be safe as long as she is there. So she decides to change the plan. Glinda will be the one to restore Oz, because Glinda has that public standing to actually make change happen. And with Glinda finally stepping outside of her bubble and really wanting to do good, we see that working with Elphaba's dreams. Number 5 is one of my favorites, and it's the I love you moment, because this is the emotional gut punch that you won't get with the musical and you don't get with the book. Because the last words Elphaba and Glinda say to each other before staging that death scene is I love you. It's not a goodbye, thank you, but I love you. And that's the moment that really elevates this movie above anything else. It's not rushed, it's not implied, it's actually spoken, and I felt it was done, so it really wrecks us in a really beautiful way. But of course, we have to talk about where do Elphaba and Fiyero go. Now, the movie ends with Elphaba and Fiyero together in the barren, windy, mysterious place called the Place Beyond Oz. We don't get a name, we don't get details, just 2 people who've chosen each other over everything else, gone off into the wilderness. Now, another thing we have to talk about, number 7, is the Grimmery. The Grimmery moment is something new. And this is something you don't get in the musical, because now the Grimmery opens for Glinda at the very end. We see the book flip open on its own after Elphaba leaves. Now, you might be thinking, does this mean Glinda finally has real magic powers? Or is it Elphaba's way of telling her friend she's still alive? The movie leaves it beautifully ambiguous. But in my personal opinion, I think Glinda's finally earned her magic. And it's only because she's truly good and she's doing things that are not self-serving. Now, we have to address the question everyone's asking, everyone's Googling. Will there be a Wicked 3? Now, here's what we know. There is evidence for it, because Gregory Maguire wrote 3 sequel novels. We have Son of a Witch, A Lion Among Men, and Out of Oz. And the way the movie ends, it really leaves Elphaba and Fiyero alive and together, which will give movie makers the option to continue, because the ending doesn't close every door. There's room to explore what happens next. Now, on the flip side, there is evidence against it, because director John M. Chu has said this is the end of Elphaba's and Glinda's story as told through the Broadway musical. So technically the musical ends here, and these films are an adaptation of the musical and not the books. However, Universal hasn't greenlit anything, and there's no indication they're planning to do so. But my hot take is I don't think we're getting a Wicked 3, at least not with this cast and this creative team. I think the story is complete. Elphaba and Glinda's arc arcs are done. However, if For Good makes a whole bunch of money, let's say billions of dollars, I think movie makers will absolutely explore Maguire's sequels. But I think it would likely be a soft reboot with new characters and maybe a time jump and a completely different tone. But let me know in the comments if you want a Wicked 3 or if you think the story should end here. I'm really curious about where you stand, especially if you've read all the books. Now let's talk about what changed from Broadway to screen, because while the movie is faithful, it does make strategic choices that completely reshape the emotional experience. And there are 5 major things I want us to discuss. Now, the first thing is that we get 2 brand new songs. The movie adds 2 original songs that are not a part of the stage show. One of them is No Place Like Home. We see this as Elphaba's solo when she encounters the animals that are fleeing Oz through the tunnel under the yellow brick road. Now, I really think this song serves a purpose because it shows Elphaba's internal struggle with whether Oz is worth fighting for. Plus, it's a direct reference to Dorothy's iconic line as well. We also have a new song entitled The Girl in the Bubble, and this is Glinda's transformation moment that really interrupts the march of the witch hunters. This is where she finally steps outside of her bubble and commits to truly being good. It's the turning point for her character, but honestly, I thought it was so necessary for the story too. The second major change is Nessa Rose's motivations, because in the musical, Nessa Rose wants to walk. That's her whole thing. Being able to walk will fix her life. However, in the movie, she wants to feel loved. She's really focused on being loved by Bock again because she's really thinking about that night at the Oz Dust when she felt like she was floating on air dancing with him. That's why Elphaba's spell makes her shoes float instead of letting her walk. I think it's a more emotionally complex narrative and it's way less ableist too. A third change from the musical is that Glinda yells Fiyero to start the song No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. Now this is controversial because in the musical, it's Elphaba that yells Fiyero's name at the start of No Good Deed. But in the movie, Glinda does that. And she's with Fiyero when the guards take him away. So in a way, this becomes her goodbye to him. Now, I know some fans hate this change. I think it worked because it shows Glinda's complicity in what happens to him. Because at this point, she's still very much aligned with the wizard in the story, and this is part of her breaking point moment. Now, we have to talk about the book because the book goes much darker, especially with Elphaba's childhood. We're talking serious trauma here. I won't get into detail, but just know it also kills off characters the musical keeps alive, including Dr. Dillamond and Madame Morrible. And Fiyero, in the book, he's married with children, and his transformation into the Scarecrow is way more tragic. So I see where the musical and the movie try to soften all of this to make the story more hopeful. Another big change, number 5, is that we get a Glinda childhood flashback. I really appreciated that the movie added this flashback to Glinda's childhood birthday party. She receives a magic wand as a gift, but she can't actually do magic, and we see her taking credit for a rainbow that coincidentally appears outside. So this really proves that Glinda has always been performative and she's really desperate for magical powers. So it's not just something that was, her thing at Shiz University. This has been her entire identity since childhood. Now we have to get into the Easter eggs because I think this is where the movie gets genius. There's so many Easter eggs everywhere and most people might miss the best ones. So I have 12 big Easter eggs I want you to keep an eye out for. The first one is Or Wizard Lies. You know that message in the sky when Elphaba crashes the yellow brick road ceremony? She writes Or Wizard Lies in the sky in the clouds. This is major foreshadowing to the Wicked Witch's sky message in the 1939 film because she was writing Surrender Dorothy. I felt it was giving the same energy, the same method, but of course a different message. Number 2 is Nessa Rose's striped socks. So when Elphaba visits Nessa Rose in Munchkinland, Nessa Rose is wearing her silver slippers and a pair of striped socks. Now, this is a direct visual match to the Wicked Witch of the East death scene in the 1939 film. All you see under Dorothy's house are the slippers and those striped socks. So I kind of love that Easter egg harkening back. Number 3 is the silver slippers glowing red. I think that is brilliant filmmaking. Seeing Nessa's slippers are silver, with like diamonds on them, like the original Wizard of Oz book. But after Elphaba cast her spell to make her lighter than air, they glow red. I think this honors both the book's version, which is silver, and the 1939 movie where they're ruby red. So that was a chef's kiss moment for me, for sure. Another Easter egg, number 4, is the cracked windows that precede Elphaba's entrance. So multiple times throughout the film, film, we have the cracked glass signaling Elphaba's arrival, including when she meets with Glinda before confronting the wizard. This is a callback to part 1 when the glass door leading to their Shiz dorm balcony cracked before the What Is This Feeling sing-along. Easter egg number 5 is the animals behind the wizard's painting. Now this is new, and we see Elphaba discovering caged animals behind a painting of the wizard. Now this mirrors the Shiz University mural reveal from part 1, where Elphaba's powers revealed animals covered by a new depiction of the wizard. I think this is visual storytelling at its finest, and also an Easter egg you might miss. Number 6 is Chistery finally speaking. So near the end, Chistery, the flying monkey captain, finally speaks to Glinda. He's voiced by D. Bradley Baker, the legend behind Perry the Platypus, and Appa and Momo from Avatar, and every single clone trooper in Star Wars as well. So if you know, you know. Number 7 is Glinda's line to Morrible, because when Glinda locks up Madame Morrible, she says, "I hope you prove me wrong. I doubt you will." Now this echoes Morrible's exact words to Glinda at the Ozdos in part 1, when she doubted Glinda could actually do magic. It's a beautiful full circle moment that shows Glinda's growth. Number 8 is the final shot recreating the Broadway poster. Now this is new, but we see the movie's literal final frame being a flashback to the Meadow Day at Shiz University. And we see Glinda sitting next to Elphaba, leaning over and whispering in her ear. This perfectly recreates the iconic Broadway poster for Wicked. It's the most beautiful way, I think, to end their story, while also honoring the stage show, while giving us one last moment of their friendship before everything changed. Number 9 is Elphaba's cackle and Fly Monkeys Fly. Seeing Cynthia Erivo channel Margaret Hamilton twice in this movie was amazing. So first, she did it when she frees the wizard's winged monkeys. Her energy really matches Hamilton's in the 1939 film when she similarly commands them to fly. But we also have a second incident during the Munchkinland confrontation with Glinda. She gives the perfect Hamilton-worthy cackle. It's both chilling and also perfect at the same time. Number 10 is the shadow duel on the yellow brick road. Now during Glinda and Elphaba's wand versus broomstick fight in Munchkinland, which really mirrors their fencing, if you remember, during the What Is This Feeling in part 1, there's a shot of their shadows on the yellow brick road. The silhouettes kind of give you the iconic profiles of the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda the Good from the 1939 film. That was cinematography perfection. Number 11 is Dorothy's silhouette only. So just like the Broadway show, Dorothy Gale's face is never shown in the movie. Her melting of the Wicked Witch is depicted through silhouettes from Glinda's perspective, hiding in the closet. Now I think this honors the stage show's approach while also adding Glinda as a witness, which really changes everything emotionally. And number 12, Alice Fern as Glinda's mother. So in the Glinda childhood flashback, her mother is played by Alice Fern, who, by the way, played in the West End production of Wicked from 2017 to 2019. I thought that was another beautiful nod to the stage show's legacy. So after all these differences, the Easter eggs and the changes, what is Wicked for Good actually about? Now, I think there are 3 major themes in this film. And the first one is who decides what is good and evil? Because if part 1 asked us, are villains born or are villains made? Part 2 asks, who gets to decide who is good and who's evil? Because Elphaba has more power than anyone in Oz, but she's labeled as wicked because she threatens the status quo. Now, Glinda is beloved despite being complicit in oppression because she's beautiful and charming and she's seen as non-threatening. So the movie really forces you to sit with this. Goodness isn't just about power or popularity, it's about sacrifice and choosing others over yourself. Another major theme is finding your home. So the No Place Like Home isn't just a Dorothy reference, it's Elphaba's entire story arc. She spends the entire movie trying to make Oz her home, by fixing it, by saving it, and by trying to transform it. But the ending reveals the truth. Sometimes home isn't a place, it's a person. And for Elphaba, home is Fiyero. For Glinda, home is Oz, but only after she's willing to fight for it. And the third major theme is how friendship changes you. The movie's title, Wicked for Good, is a double meaning in a way. For Good is the song Elphaba and Glinda sing about how they've changed each other permanently. But at the same time, it's also Glinda's promise. She'll be good for good. Not performatively this time, not for applause, not for praise, actually truly be good. And I don't know about you, but here's what really wrecked me. Elphaba doesn't get to see Glinda be the person she always believed she could be. She has to trust in herself that their friendship was enough, that the sacrifices was enough, and that Glinda truly will change. But the movie does end with one last reprise of For Good. And I love seeing Elphaba in the desert and Glinda on the balcony in Oz, and they're singing together across impossible distance. But we get that flashback to the meadow moment when they were just girls who didn't know they'd change each other's lives forever and they'd be where they are today. Truly, it's devastating, but it's perfect. And it's why this movie works. Because in the end, this is a story about two friends. So here's my final take. Wicked for Good, I think, is the best movie musical adaptation in a really long time. When I think about it, the only comparison that comes to mind is Chicago, because I see how it honors the Broadway show while making smart changes for the screen, while also respecting the 1939 Wizard of Oz without being completely consumed by it. And not for nothing, it takes Gregory Maguire's really dark, really complex novel and find hope inside it. And most importantly, I think it understands, again, that Elphaba and Glinda's friendship is the real love story of this franchise. But is it perfect? No. Some of the new songs feel a bit long. The pacing really drags in the middle. And I wish we'd gotten more time with Fiyero before his transformation. But does it stick the landing? Absolutely. I think the ending works because it doesn't try to give you that happy ending where everyone wins and everyone gets what they want. Because Elphaba loses her home. Glinda loses her best friend. Fiyero loses his humanity. But at the same time, they all gain something too. They gain freedom, they gain purpose, and they gain love. But I'd love to hear from you. I want to know what changes from the book and the musical hit you the hardest. Are there things you wish they included in the mix? Share your takes in the comments because I'm very curious about the points that resonated with you. But if you want a deep dive into the book Wicked itself, if you want the differences, because trust me, Gregory Maguire's novel is wild and we barely scratched the surface here. Plus, we have a whole series. There are 3 additional books. Let me know in the comments. I'll make a video if there's demand for it. But again, let me know, are you team Wicked 3 or team Leave It Alone? Do you want to see the other books adapted or should it end here with Elphaba's and Glinda's story? Now, if you haven't already, now's a great time to hit that like button and subscribe so YouTube knows to recommend this to other Wicked fans. And keep an eye out because I will be covering all the major book-to-screen adaptations coming out now and in the years ahead. But I have to say, whether you loved or hated the changes, whether you cried or you cringed, whether you're team Elphaba or team Glinda, I think this movie really gave us something rare. It gave us the story about 2 women whose friendship is more important than any romance, any power, or any destiny. And I feel that in a world where women are constantly pit against each other, this was beautiful and this was magical. So I had a fun time with Wicked. I hope you did too. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.